It's day one of free agency done. Obi Toppin re-signs with the Pacers. So much other chaos happens in the league. The salary cap is a little lower than the league said it might be. Whew! There's a lot to get to on today's Locked On Pacers podcast, and Derek Kramer is going to help us break it all down. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name is Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, free agency is off. It's running. Paul George had a meeting so bad with the Clippers, they put out a statement. Who knows what team he'll be on? I think we all have a pretty good hunch. The Pacers, what you hear about today, re-signed Obi Toppin, or are going to. What does that mean for the Pacers? Is that a good deal? 4 years, $60 million. What does that mean for Jarace Walker? There's so much to get to. The salary cap's different. The Pacers team's almost full. And Derek Kramer from iPacersblog is going to join us to break it all down from day one of Pacers free agency and what comes next for the Pacers, given what we already know. With Toppin back in the fold, is that a good move? I think it is, but why? We'll deliver all of that to you guys today. Talk about the next steps for the Pacers. Let's just get right to it with Derek Kramer. Day one of free agency has come and kind of gone. It's still the first day, but the first hours were dramatic-ish. Ex-Pacer Paul George dominating the headlines. By the time you're listening to this, I had to pick the team. We'll see. I have to stress this on every free agency podcast ever. It's 11:47 p.m. Eastern time on June 30th. And the Pacers did their second big move of the offseason today. Obi Toppin re-signed. We'll talk his contract, the money, the years. Is that a good deal? What does the market rate say for this position? What does this mean for the Pacers' new financial reality? And what comes next in free agency? They're young guys, so much to get to. And it's been over a month. So he's back to help me do it. It's Derek Kramer from iPacersblog. Derek, were you surprised at anything about Obi Toppin's re-signing, or was this as simple as we all thought all offseason?
I thought maybe it wouldn't happen before free agency started. I mean, I think he probably got the word from his agents that, like, not going to be anybody knocking at your door immediately looking to make you a big mammoth offer. This is probably going to be what we're going to get. So, yeah, like I think the money totals sounds good. The amount of years makes sense to me. Nothing too surprising. Kind of the Pacers I think it just makes perfect sense to want to re-sign this guy who was a just perfect offensive role player for the team, shooting 70% on twos, 40% on threes, just unbelievable efficiency. Yeah, and he's back.
Yeah. I had often predicted on this show something in the 3 for 45 range. This is just one more year of that, which is actually a little surprising to me. And I only say that because in my head, he's 26. Like, I don't know if this is a real thing, but this is like when stuff is selling for $19.99 instead of $20, right? Like a 29-year-old free agent sounds better than a 30-year-old free agent. Maybe there's nothing to that, but I thought a 3-year deal, get back out there when you're 29, would be potentially appealing. The money to know here is the first 2 years of this deal are above the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. The third year is basically exactly what the non-taxpayer mid-level exception will be that year. And the fourth year is under. So if that was your barometer for about what he would get, or if you're him, what you would hope to get from someone else as a restricted free agent, you got a little bit over that for a team that, this has kind of been my thesis with OB all summer, is like the perfect fit for your skill set. Right. He needs to be a better defender, like to really grow with the Pacers, but he got brought here to be a transition threat and fly above the rim. And I thought that's cool. But, I wasn't so stoked about that, what that could be for the team. And then he made a bunch of threes and I was like, oh, this is the perfect fit for their team. Right. Like, you just keep that guy. And that's why I thought he'd get $15 million a year if he stayed with the Pacers, and he got $15 million a year with the Pacers. So we'll talk structure in a second, but to me, that all makes a lot of logical sense. Like, there's what is there to? I don't feel like I'm missing anything. It felt very easy to me.
Yeah, and just like even there's going to be a rotation crunch now. Like, of course, those Pacers have a lot of guys that deserve to play, and not enough spots for everybody. But like, this also gives the Pacers another $15 million salary to potentially make a trade in some kind of 2-for-1 or whatever situation down the line. Like obviously Obi is a perfect fit, but they do have multiple players that like could fill in his spot and deserve to play, like Jarace Walker. So yeah, like it
Johnny
makes sense.
Furphy, Derek.
Johnny Furphy, yes. So sorry.
We have no idea. No idea what he's going to be.
I'll make every judgment I need to know about this Johnny Furphy at Summer League, and I'll have him figured out.
I actually think someone could have made me laugh today with "Are they burying Johnny Furphy?" tweet after they signed Obi's out. I would have laughed very hard at that.
Enrique Freeman is just getting.
What are they doing? They just picked this guy at 50. Unbelievable asset.
We give Toppin $15 million after that.
Okay. So let me throw you some other contracts that exist in the NBA really quick. And those are not on this Excel spreadsheet. I'm in the wrong place. Okay, those contracts are Royce O'Neal. Royce O'Neal with the Suns, like 2 days ago, yesterday, 4 years, $44 million. That's $11 million per year. Obi Toppin is just better than him. That's very easy. So he got more than him. That makes sense. I once again went to the wrong Excel spreadsheet. Okay, Patrick Williams with the Bulls. 5 years, $90 million, player option. That's $18 million a year. I would say right now, today, Obi's probably a little better, but I think Patrick Williams will be better very soon. I like Patrick Williams a lot, and he got more. That makes sense to me. These values make sense so far. Number 3, last year offseason, Rui Hachimura, no H. Rui Hachimura, 3 years, $51 million, $17 million per year. That's close. Reserve 4 fits very well with their team. Okay, great. Last year, PJ Washington. And I have to stress last year because he was amazing after he got traded. But prior to people knowing that he could do that, PJ Washington, 3 years, $46.5 million, just over $15 million per season. And how about an exact contract comp and a very similar statistical production player? Isaiah Stewart's rookie scale extension with the Detroit Pistons is exactly 4 years, $60 million, and starts this season. Isaiah Stewart last year as the 4-man for Detroit, averaged 10.9 points and 6.6 rebounds per game, and missed like half the season with an injury. Exactly the same as Toppin's. I say all this to say, good backup fours who fit your style, this is what they cost. And so I think that if you're coming from Toppin's side of the table, that would have been about where negotiations started. And the mid-level exception was kind of this line for the Pacers of the decisions they can make with an external free agent. And there's not a lot of gap between those numbers I just said, the mid-level exception. So it seemed very easy to me that around this range made the most sense. And if you run through those other players, it's very easy to view this as, I would not say an underpay or overpay, just a fine contract.
Yeah, I agree completely. Kind of the PJ Washington, like also similar restricted free agent.
Yeah.
Ends up waiting a long time before he gets that deal, hoping to get more. Patrick Williams, restricted free agent. Like, I think he's just kind of got that body type and the much better defense where you think like his potential could take him higher than where Obi can get to defensively just because of the type of body that Obi has. So, yeah, I think it makes perfect sense, right in line with all those contracts you mentioned. And he's better than some of those players and maybe slightly worse than some of those players.
So the next part of this is like their rubric for success is no longer development, it's winning. And he got better last year. Like, the shooting is the reason I think he turned out to be a better fit than I totally expected. But he's got to keep getting better because, like, Siakam's on the team now. Like, his role this season is probably capped at 20 minutes a game, and that would require him playing with Siakam for a few minutes every night, and who knows if that'll even happen. So that kind of player to be worth this kind of deal has to be at least the level of player he was last year, and then maybe add even more in some other way, whether that's he got better as a rebounder, but more consistent rebounding, a little better defending, even better shooting. Like, if that can be a thing. The other thing would be him just being the backup 5 often. If that ended up being the case, I don't know if it should be or whatever, but and we'll get to that in a second. But I think for this contract to age well, that he'll have to keep getting better, and that's certainly possible. He's only been in the NBA 4 years. But if this is who he is, what he was last year, it's fine, but no more than fine. And I've said the whole time, you keep the player rights in a small market like Indiana and figure it out later. And they did that. But for it to be a good contract, one that they're like psyched about the whole time, I don't think it can be bad unless he gets hurt or just forgets how to shoot. he's got to keep getting better because he certainly does have some deficiencies and his role is not going to be huge.
Yeah, and obviously he's got Jarace Walker, like, who the Pacers obviously expect to be getting better too. So if he eventually supplants him, and then, yeah, it's like, are you going to play more small with the backup five instead of Isaiah Jackson all the time? Or, yeah, like there's just a numbers crunch there's going to be eventually. So, yeah, Obi's got to keep earning his spot. Just because he's got this contract doesn't mean that his spot in the rotation is safe or anything.
Hey guys, short little break. Let's talk about FanDuel. I love sports. I love sports so much I never want them to stop, and I watch something almost every day. But as the playoffs wind down in the NBA and the NHL, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like we all want them to. But FanDuel, oh boy, they let you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you have to do, open their app, dream up bets anytime you're in the mood, and bang, you're sportsing like you want. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus every single day. That's right. There's something for everybody every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockdown and start making the most out of your summer with daily boosts and bonuses on FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. That's FanDuel.com/lockdown. Speaking of numbers crunch, what a day, Derek. What a day. Fun note to come across from the league. I can't remember, besides the COVID year, the last time this happened. The NBA communications sends out the salary cap line that's been set for next year, and it's lower than the last projection that went out to teams during the season. The tax is lower. Everything's lower when that happens. It's not that much lower, but it's lower. So all the numbers you've heard about their space and their tax space are actually slightly smaller than that. We can get into theories about why the NBA's revenue was tinier. This is not what this podcast is for, but that matters because they signed a player to a 4-year, $60 million contract that day. So I'm doing some estimating because I am putting Johnny Furphy already into their tax space because I think he's going to get a roster spot. So you'll see a lot of differences between the number I'm saying and what you'll read online. That said, if you count Furphy in, I have the Pacers at 13 players. That would be Haliburton, Turner, Nesmith, McConnell, Mathurin, Walker, Jackson, Shepard, Nembhard, and Kendall Brown under contract. That's 10. And then Siakam, Toppin, and Furphy as either agreed to or going to be agreed to deals. And with those 13 players, they're pretty dang close to the now lower $170.8 million tax. And so I have a guess. I don't know this, but because it came in a little lower and because they were already close to the tax, I bet Toppin's deal starts as low as it possibly can in year one and then gets those max 8% raises every single year. And if that's the case, his first year salary would be $13.39 million. And if that is the case, and my estimated Johnny Furphy contract, which could be plus or minus a couple $100,000, I currently have it at $1,850,000. I have that as putting the Pacers $4.25 million from the tax with 2 roster spots left. That is doable. 2 minimums. Great. You did it. A rookie minimum. You cut Kendall Brown and get a cheaper minimum in there. There's lots of very feasible ways to do that, but that's hairy stuff. And there's bonuses for McConnell and Turner that are like hard but attainable. Like it's tricky. I'll be very curious how they kind of manage the back end of their roster now, because this all made sense, but they do have to deal with that line going forward for sure now.
Yeah, so when we heard the Pacers were on the prowl, it was always going to be a very, very challenging situation to find.
I hated that.
To find somebody that was going to be like worth making a trade for, and that they could also like salary match and make sense with just the financial reality of what they have going on. Like even just using the full mid-level, I don't think fans realize that that's not going to happen.
Oh, no. Oh, let me be more clear. That's now impossible because the difference between them and the first apron is less than the full mid-level now. That's not even possible anymore. They can use some of it, but not all of it.
Yes, and they can't, like they can only use it up to that first apron, right? Because once they get past the first apron,
if you go over the tax MLE with your MLE, hard capped immediately. Yep.
Yeah, and right now that, like you said, they're about $4 million, so they can't even use the full like tax payer.
They could. They'd go into the tax, which would be stupid, but they could.
So like, there's no reason like you shouldn't just go into the tax to go into the tax. Like that doesn't make sense to do. So like if you're still expecting the Pacers to use their mid-level, like just get rid of that expectation, because
if you have that expectation, you should have a second expectation that they're going to trade away.
Yeah, they got to get rid of somebody.
Yeah, and I don't currently have that expectation. Their team makes a lot of sense to me right now, right? Like they have a rotation, they have young guys ready to play, right? Like maybe they're missing a front court player, but like it makes sense to me. They're just financially like, this is it right now. And if the cap does go up 10% every year, they'll be fine. Like they have ways to wiggle and keep who they want. In fact, we'll see what happens with McConnell in an extension, but like there's a chance the only guy completely out of their control for next year is Myles Turner, right? Like it's a pretty good spot to be still, but they still have to get to that point. They have to do the dance this year still. And it's going to be close without a trade. And wowie, Derek Jones to the Clippers. That surprises me because in one of my, let's do some inside baseball, Derek. I keep a list of notes of like, if I get to a point in a free agency podcast where I'm out of stuff to say this, bring this thing up. And one of them is like, if Derek Jones is actually leaving the Mavs, he'd be a sick fit on the Pacers. Like unreal good. He can defend guards and forwards. That is not the case anymore, but that is a great contract for the Clippers. Anyway, that is my financial reality for the Pacers update for the many people that ask. And unless they make a trade, I would do what Derek just said and caution you all that they will, if they do anything else, it's probably like the most veteran yawn worthy signing. Like, a 37-year-old third center. But that's a fine thing. They need to do that.
Cody Zeller,
like so exciting.
Yeah, Cody Zeller homecoming we joked about before the before the
I put him in a thumbnail, man. It's happening.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's actually happening, but
it feels like a very like that's like the perfect guy. He's not going to expect to play.
He does not suck. He's okay.
Veteran guy, like Indiana ties. Like it just kind of makes sense if they decide to get a third center that's like a veteran dude. Like it would make sense because he's not like that. Shouldn't threaten Isaiah Jackson's potential for doing it. But like even if you're just thinking about like. So, like, yes, like the Pacers just made the Eastern Conference Finals. It feels like it might feel like to you that they should be going for more right now. But it's just kind of the reality of, like, this was supposed to still be a rebuilding year. They don't have a lot of contracts to, like, make a kind of trade to, like, upgrade a guy. Like, Bridges would have been a guy that they potentially could have, like, salary matched for. But he wanted to go to the Knicks. The Pacers don't have enough, like, picks yet either to make one of those like crazy trades because they gave the 26 picks for Siakam. So like this is just kind of the reality of it. Like the Pacers have a really good set of players right now. Like we already talked about, they don't have enough rotation spots for the guys that they have. And those players don't make it. They have so many guys on rookie contracts that they don't make enough money to like swap for something big yet. So like, it's just kind of the reality of like where they're at. Like they're in a really good spot. It might feel like they should be trying to go for more to some people, but like they don't want to skip steps. Like if like you're going to trade Bennedict, Mathurin or Jarace Walker for like a mediocre forward that might be an upgrade now, but like eventually one of those guys might be better than that person in the future. So it's just like, would you trade one of those guys to try to get Cam Johnson or something?
No, God, no.
Yeah.
It's awkward. It's awkward it's awkward when the results skip steps because then it feels like the team should, but they shouldn't, to be clear. Like Pascal Siakam's on their team. Their goals are clear to win,
Yes.
So like maybe just thinking of that, the premise is like, yeah, trade the young guys for something great. But if they have this whole team of youth ready to go, it's just a very hard reality to marry. But they are like, because of their financial situation, they're like a lock to make a consolidation trade in the next 20 months or so, something like that, the 2026 deadline. If you map out the team and the rotation of the 13 guys they have, their playoff rotation from last year, the 10 for that, are back. And then the other 3 are Furphy, Walker, and Brown. If you're looking at under that prism for their free agencies, is there anything else that they really need with their last 2 roster spots? If you keep 13 into the season, you can only do that for 2 weeks. They're going to have at least 14 on their team. they might be able to have 15 if they can have cheap enough contracts. Kendall Brown's reality will be fascinating there. But is there anything to you that they need? Like, I have an answer, but I'm curious what you think.
I mean, they could use a longer wing, but even if you sign that guy, they're gonna want to play, and even anybody they sign right now is gonna be a guy that has to be willing to know that they're coming into an already crowded rotation. So just one more veteran spot. If they don't James Johnson is obviously still an option, but it's a third center maybe. And then, there's not a lot that they need for what they have. There's obviously places they could upgrade, but as we talked about before, it's really hard to make a salary match for a trade to even try to go that way and find an upgrade in that way.
Yeah. Well, it's not hard to make the salary match. It's just that if you trade away Myles Turner and whoever else, it's
then you got other problems.
Yeah. Then you need a center now. So if you just map out their depth chart of, starting 5, Haliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, Siakam, Turner, bench of pick your backup 3. I will currently say McConnell, Mathurin, Shepard, Toppin, Jackson. And then you have Brown, Furphy, and Walker. We talked about this a little before we started. You could say, do you need a third big? Obi Toppin can be center. He showed that at times last year. Or Siakam at the 5 for a few minutes, whatever. You can get away with that. That's fine. I would say in the regular season, you don't want to do that very often. So I think there is an argument for a third center, maybe under the Damian Wilkins kind of contract, non-guaranteed to start the season. Keelan Martin, remember when he got waived? He was non-guaranteed to start the season for the whole season. Is there anyone else? I can't remember. O'Shea Brissett was non-guaranteed, but he was never going to get waived. That was just what it was. And then they have enough point guards between Nembhard starting at the 2 and Tristan Newton on a 2-way, so they're probably good there. But that's the other thing. None of their 2-ways are centers, so maybe it's external guy, veteran player who if you're Rick Carlisle and you have an injury, you're like, okay, I can trust this guy. Maybe you try Shibwe in a pinch. They tried that twice last year. But the only 2 times they were comfortable with it were against Jakob Poeltl and Rudy Gobert, which is a very specific type of player. So that's the only thing that I can identify as this is, if I had to pick what they would do with their 14th roster spot right now, I would say it'd be someone who can fill in at center. And then from there, it's kind of whatever they see fit. And maybe they try to cut Kendall Brown and get a cheaper guy in. I don't know. Maybe they like him and they will because his contract's very cheap too. But that's kind of what I think the rest of their free agency looks like.
Yeah, I agree. And I even if the stuff we're talking about that they kind of need to fill out the roster, the draft picks that they have, they can use, even if they're on 2-ways, you can bring those guys up and give them the shot if they are in need of somebody at those spots. So yeah, it seems like it's just gonna be a very quiet, they re-sign their guys, they're running it back. And then, as you said, probably in the future is when a trade is going to eventually happen.
Similar to the 2021 summer. I don't even remember how many additions they actually had that year going into that season, but they did not change their team very much from the Bjorkgren year to the first year of Carlisle. Hardly at all, really. Justin Holiday left, for example. Yeah. Except they're better now than they were back then.
Yes.
Okay, so there's the second part of the Toppin deal that has been discussed a lot. It should be discussed even more. And that's Jarace, right? People, I think this is wrong. There was a lot of takes that's this says a lot about what they think about Jarace. No, signing Obi Toppin says to me a lot about what they think of Obi Toppin. And if Jarace is good enough very soon that you have to consider that future now, that's good. Now, here's the thing. We just built out our rotation with Ben Shepard as the backup 3. Maybe Jarace can play backup 3. I would be shocked to not play Ben Shepard. So if you want to play Shepard, then you move Mathurin out, but that doesn't make sense either. It's someone young has to not play unless Toppin's your backup center, but then Isaiah Jackson is the young guy not playing. So something is going to feel wrong or goofy. I have said the following a lot. And I haven't said it a lot. I said it after they signed OG Anunoby, but I would not be looking to trade Jarace as the Pacers. And Anunoby getting 5 for 212, I was like if there's a 10% chance he's that impactful, not even 10%. Like, you know how hard it'd be for me to trade that guy? Like, that's such an important player for any team, including the Pacers. Like, it would take a ton. And then we got a report from Michael Scotto after Toppin agreed that said, as the Indiana Pacers have done their due diligence working the phones with NBA teams across the league, rival executives have inquired about Bennedict, Mathurin, and Jarace Walker. League sources told Hoopside. Both young players, however, haven't been made available by Indiana, with the team looking to bring back its core and attempt to make another deep playoff run. I don't know that those two are necessarily like so related to a deep playoff run in particular, but I would be doing the same thing as them because I think they're valuable and they could be valuable parts of a significant trade at some point. But it doesn't make sense to me that they would just be like, let's dump Jarace. Like, what for what? You don't get players now. You have too many players already. And trading Jarace Walker for picks makes no sense to me. So like there's nothing that makes sense. So I obviously understand what everybody's saying. It's obviously funky that your lottery pick in year 2 does not have an obvious role in front of him. And I don't know what they do about that because I feel like you should play. But I don't know who you take out for him to play. And I still would have re-signed Obi Toppin. I said that all summer. So I think it's just that they have one too many guys right now. And I don't know how they figure that out. At some point, they'll have to, certainly. But I still would have done this even when thinking about Jarace. But I do think they'll have to make a decision to get him either minutes or use him to get something awesome at some point in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like they're very high on Jarace. Like the Buchanan's talked about how like the last couple weeks have been great for him and he's been working out twice a day, all that stuff you always hear about young guys in the summer. But like just he's so versatile. Like the Pacers use him as their garbage time point guard because all 3 of their point guards are rotation guys. Like and like at the draft point, like it was kind of wondering like is he going to be more of a 5 rather than a 4? And now they're thinking he can play 3.
Yeah.
So like you can put him anywhere in the lineup. Like eventually they'll find a spot where he can contribute with regularity as long as he improves and does the things that they're looking for as far as playing with more force, being more consistent on defense, not relying on kind of gambling on the end. Like they need that body type. Like just as you said, like there's any chance he can be like that OG type of defender with length on these big wings. Like that's exactly what they need. So like if there's no reason to like rush into a trade for him, and like we talked about, like he doesn't make money, you're gonna have to like combine his salary with Myles Turner's to get anybody making a decent amount right now. It's just like repeating the same thing. Like you're trying to trade another hole pop up. Like it just doesn't make sense to try to do one of those deals.
I agree, and it's even trickier because, well. Okay, first I agree. The other thing I wanted to get in a couple more things to respond to myself. I don't think he's going to become OG Anunoby. That's just like a proxy of a player that you're seeing get these crazy deal that's like, oh, you know, this is something they should think about. But that is like not insane that on the defensive end that could happen. Okay, thing 2 I would say is if Jarace is guy number 11 on the team, I could make the argument that if any center, any 4, any 3, or any 2 gets hurt, he is the guy who would play. He would be the recipient of minutes. Probably would be a little trickier at point guard because Mathurin can't just move down, and Hard moving to the backup 1 doesn't really open up anything. But in my head, like Toppin or Siakam hurt, obviously he could slide in. Shepard or Nesmith hurt, obviously he could slide in. A 2 gets hurt, you just move Shepard down and he slides in. A 5 gets hurt, you move Toppin up and he slides in. So like he'll play more, right? Like they have less guys than last year when they had Tyrese at the beginning of the season and they had Bruce Brown and Buddy Hield at times throughout the season. And it's just different. They have fewer. Doug McDermott was on the team to close last season. I would say Toppin returning rules a lot of that out. So I bring all that up to say there's still going to be chances for him to play, right? It's going to pop up at some point that there's an injury. And so that's another reason to say, like, it's fine. You need an 11th guy who's going to hit the floor at some point. So, again, I don't think he'll ever be Anunoby. That's like an outrageous high-end outcome. But the fact that it's like that's a hope would just that would tether me to him. And I think he'll play more this year because of the chance of injuries. I think he'll play more this year because they need to find chances for him to play more. And once he's good enough to, then yeah. But certainly they need to figure this out at some point, but I still would have kept Toppin with that in mind. And you mentioned one more thing that I'll bring up. I hate saying this right when a contract is signed, but like if you're trying to stack contracts to make your big trade in the future, Obi Toppin is going to be a part of that. It's just very valuable in that way.
Yeah, it's just a reality of it. Like obviously they're very big fans of Obi. They like praised him a ton. They want him back. They're not like thinking about that when they sign it, but it is just a reality of it that that contract could end up being it's part of a trade down the line.
There's like a Turner Toppin young guy stack gets you like anybody in the league. You know, like you can't think that way, you know, but that's just how it is, and that's how the mid-tier contracts work, right? So, is there anything else we missed from day one of Pacers free agency? Obi Toppin is back, and the Pacers team is pretty close to set, barring an unforeseen trade, someone popping up on the market, which doesn't seem likely. I feel like we're going to see some little stuff. I feel like you're going to see ex-Pacers signing there's not room for anyone left, right? I'm not even saying this because I know anything. It's just like it seems like Jalen Smith and Doug McDermott are not returnees. It's just how their roster's set up now. So maybe you'll see that in the coming days. We'll talk about all that here, but I think that's day one. Toppin's back. Their reality is looking pretty set for next year.
Yep. Paul George for a vet minimum, I think, is the
Lordy.
The only thing. Lordy. Yep. He left the Clippers for 3 years.
Somehow
3 years,
the timing has
the
timing has perfectly slid of annoying, impossible things. So it's like PG and then OG, and then right when OG ended, it was back to PG, and then PG ended, and everyone's like, oh my God, now it's Clay. The Pacers can get Clay. I'm like, guys, no, they can't get any of these people. They cannot do it. Okay, KCP snuck in for like 2 seconds.
Oh that was so weird.
What? Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
Like what are they going to trade that would make sense for them to do? Yes, KCP is a wonderful player, but what are they going to trade that would match a salary that would make sense for the Pacers to give up?
And an Obi for KCP double sign-in trade would not have been legal because that would hard cap the Nuggets, and they can't afford it. So that's not even possible. So
Obi, obviously, it's not impossible. Obi with Jokic is like super fun.
That'd be sick.
Just to know, that would be super fun to watch.
It was impossible. I was like, wait, if he's like the Nuggets can offer $25 million, right? Like, what can the Pacers possibly do? That was the weirdest thing. That was so odd. So there are other reports that are out there. We just mentioned one of them with the young guys, some trade stuff. One other free agent that's like cheapish that makes sense that came out. So if they don't do anything tomorrow, so I'll talk about some moves that have been made that I would have sniffed around as the Pacers. Those reports that are still relevant given what has happened. Any other guys that leave, anything that they do, if they do bring someone else in or cut somebody or something, we'll see. Lots to come. It's July 1 now, as Derek and I are talking, which means that like they can sign two ways and minimums legally right now, like officially. They probably won't, but they can. So we'll see how this all changes in the coming days. But the Pacers' reality for next season looking very set, hoping that the young guys get better. Derek, thank you for the time. Very weird first day of free agency with all the new rules. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Where can people find you and your work covering the Pacers and what they might do for the rest of free agency?
Yeah, if you're on the prowl for more Pacers coverage, you can.
Brother. Oh, my God.
Check iPacers.com. Follow me on Twitter, iPacersblog. Check out my T-shirts. Myles High Club one, popular all the way in Japan. Some people
wow,
cool picture.
No one in Japan has ever quipped back at me and said, doesn't look like they're on the prowl. So go Japan, people. Thank you for not being snarky and understanding the rules of the NBA on the internet.
Good job.
That is the end. I can't wait for the dust to settle. I wonder if there's a chance that nothing Paul George is going to hold the market, I think, to finish this with the next Pacer until he decides, which it's funny to say decides because as of this moment of information, which could change, it looks like his decision is one team. So if it once that's done, if it happens,
it's only not out. Like, I think I agree with whoever said it first. Like, it's only not out because he wants to say it on his podcast first.
That's possible.
Right? Like, that's the only reason it's not out yet.
Who said that they were meeting in one of the newsbreakers said they're meeting in LA tonight, which it's 9:30 there right now. It's maybe. But that would be funny.
Soon.
That would be very funny. Once that happens, and then it's just like the best, like Jonas Valanciunas signed, right? It's like the best player left is Clay, and then you're either returning to your own.
Take a pay cut. Like that's like
you're either returning to your own team or you're getting the MLE. Like figure it out. Let's go. That's give you the rest of it. So this could move quick, depending on when PG decides to go. But if he doesn't tomorrow, be a lot of speculatory stuff here on Locked On Pacers. I'm on Twitter at Tony R. East, writing about as much stuff that comes through as I can. And Summer League stuff will get going in about a week. So lots of fun stuff coming in Pacerland. Give Derek a follow. Check out his work too. He also talked about the on the prowl stuff because Tyrese Haliburton made the funniest face he's ever made when Brian Windhorst said that. Thank y'all for listening. Have a wonderful day. See you very soon.